My girlfriend pretended to be broke for 2 years, so I sent her a bill for everything and let her lawyer discover my hidden recording. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and I used to believe love meant sacrifice. I met Leah during a volunteer event at a community garden. She was painting a mural on the far wall, barefoot, speckled with blue paint, humming to herself. She had this carefree energy, like she didn't belong to the world we all stressed in. I remember thinking, she's exactly the kind of person I need. Gentle, grounded, artistic. We spent the entire afternoon talking about books, music, and childhood wounds. I don't even remember finishing the flower bed I was assigned to. On our second date, over coffee at this cheap little diner, she told me she was broke. Not in a just struggling a little way, but in a I might not make rent this month way. She apologized before she said it, like she expected me to walk away. Instead, I leaned forward, smiled, and said, "Money doesn't matter to me. I just like being around you." Her eyes welled up. That night, she kissed me like I'd just saved her. From then on, it became normal. Me reaching for the bill, her hesitating like it hurt her pride, then giving in with a soft, "Thank you." I paid for dinner, ride shares, snacks, even her favorite almond milk she insisted didn't upset her stomach like the cheap kind. One night her car broke down and I just offered to cover the repairs. She cried and said, "I hate being a burden." But somehow, I always ended up footing the bill. Groceries, her vet appointment. That time she wanted to take an online art course but couldn't afford the registration fee. I kept telling myself this was love, real love, that this was what support looked like. But I think I knew, even then, that something didn't feel fair. I just didn't want to admit it. Leah had a way of making guilt feel like love. Every time I tried to talk about money, even gently, she'd get quiet. Her shoulders would stiffen, her voice would tremble, and she'd say something like, "I guess you think I'm useless." One time, I brought up the idea of her maybe picking up a small gig, dog walking, tutoring, anything. She stared at me with glassy eyes and whispered, "You know what that would do to my mental health?" And I backed off, like I always did. She told me she was trying to make it as an artist and that working a dead-end job would crush her soul. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Every time I transferred her rent money, every time I upgraded her Adobe subscription or covered her therapy bill, I told myself, this is what love is. You hold each other up. It didn't help that she made me feel like a hero when I did it. "I've never had anyone support me like this," she'd say. "You make me feel safe." And that felt good. It felt needed, like I was finally doing something meaningful. Still, the expenses started piling up. I was dipping into my savings to cover our shared life. And when I'd hesitate, even slightly, she'd retreat into her shell. She'd curl up on the couch, blanket over her head, and say things like, "I knew this was too good to last," or, "I'm just a project to you." I hated seeing her like that. So I'd apologize, again, and again. She used to say, "Money doesn't matter to me." But looking back, it was always my money that didn't matter to her, and the more I gave, the less I recognized the man in the mirror. I wasn't her partner. I was becoming her provider. It wasn't just the money. It was how she made me feel for even mentioning it. The conversations always started small. I'd gently ask, "Hey, do you think you could maybe cover the internet bill this month?" And instantly the mood would shift. Her lips would press tight, eyes glassy with hurt, and she'd whisper, "I thought you understood me better than that." Every time I tried to express concern, it became an attack on her entire identity. I wasn't talking about bills. I was invalidating her trauma. She'd bring up her father a lot, how he used to shame her for not being successful enough, how he'd call her lazy or selfish when she struggled to keep jobs. "I thought you were different from him," she'd say, voice trembling, turning her back to me as she curled up in bed. I'd sit there, silent, ashamed, and confused. Was I becoming the villain in her story? She always knew when to cry. She didn't wail or throw tantrums. Her sadness was subtle, surgical. A quiet tear slipping down her cheek as she looked away. A cracked voice saying, "I wish I wasn't so broken." and I'd feel like the worst person alive, every single time, but then she'd post things online. Aesthetic photos of latte art and cozy mornings with captions like, "Healing in safe spaces." She made it seem like she was this self-aware, emotionally mature woman. But at home, I was walking on eggshells, terrified to even mention money or fairness. She kept saying, "I don't care about material things." But she never once offered to return the iPad I bought her, or the necklace, or the shoes. I wanted to believe she was just wounded, that with enough love, she'd heal. But I was the one bleeding, and I hadn't even noticed the cuts. It started with brunch. A mutual friend, Sam, casually mentioned seeing Leah at this upscale cafe downtown, the kind with $20 avocado toast and $8 lattes. "Didn't know you were into that spot," he said. I blinked. "I'm not," I replied. Leah had told me she was staying in that weekend. Too broke to go out, too anxious to socialize. I asked her about it later that night, careful not to sound accusatory. She barely looked up from her sketchpad and said, "Oh yeah, my friend Elle treated me. I didn't even want to go." I wanted to believe her, but something in her tone felt off. That night, curiosity won over trust. I looked her up on Instagram, an account she claimed she barely touched, and found nothing new. But then I searched her handle under a different browser and found a second profile. Private, hidden, completely different aesthetic. She had thousands of followers and dozens of curated posts. Leah posing in designer clothes. Leah sipping cocktails. Leah with captions like "Soft Girl Era." "I only accept peace and 5-star desserts." There were comments from people I didn't recognize. "Queen energy. Luxury on a budget. Manifesting this lifestyle." None of it looked like the girl crying in my arms over bounced rent payments. The next morning, I asked her, calmly, "Do you have another Instagram account?" She paused for a beat too long. "Oh, yeah, it's just for art inspo. I don't really post." I nodded, pretending I hadn't seen her wearing a $300 coat in her last post. I felt a chill settle in my stomach that wouldn't go away. I didn't say anything else that day, but I started noticing everything after that. Sometimes the truth doesn't scream. It slips. Leah was in the shower one evening, music playing faintly through the bathroom door. Her phone lit up beside me on the coffee table. I wasn't snooping. I didn't even intend to look. But when the name Elle popped up with a preview that read, "Booked the Bali trip yet? We're gonna blow so much of that IT nerd's money, lol." My heart stopped. I stared at it. Reread it, blinking like my mind could undo what my eyes had seen. I don't remember standing up. I just remember pacing, heart pounding, stomach twisted. The water shut off, and Leah stepped out a few minutes later, wrapped in a towel, humming like nothing had happened. She saw my face instantly. "What's wrong?" she asked, her smile slipping. I nodded toward her phone. "Elle texted you. Something about Bali and me." There was a flicker of panic, but it passed. Just like that, she switched tones. "Wow, so now you're checking my phone?" she said, voice sharp like I was the one who'd crossed a line. "Do you realize how toxic that is?" I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I felt like I was standing outside my own life, watching her gaslight me like a seasoned pro. She rolled her eyes. "Elle jokes like that all the time. You're being dramatic." She walked off before I could speak again. That was the end of it. For her. But for me, something broke that night. She didn't deny using me. She just denied my right to feel betrayed. The next day, I ordered a tiny voice recorder online. I didn't know what I was looking for yet, but I knew I needed the truth. And this time, I'd let her tell it, without even realizing it. It arrived 2 days later. A small black recorder, no bigger than my thumb, disguised as a digital clock. I felt sick holding it, like I'd crossed some moral line I swore I never would. But the doubt had become unbearable. Every conversation echoed with suspicion. Every "I love you" felt laced with performance. So I slid the device onto the bookshelf in our living room and pressed record. The first week, nothing. Just background noise, TV chatter, her humming while painting, phone calls that cut off the moment I walked into the room. But on the 10th night I caught something. She was on a call with someone. Maybe Elle. Her voice was light, teasing, buzzing with energy I hadn't heard in months. "Girl, he bought me that standing desk I wanted." $400? Didn't even blink. A pause. "No," I told him it was for my back pain. "Please, I just like the aesthetic." Laughter. "I keep telling you, he's not a boyfriend. He's a fucking investor." I sat frozen in my chair, headphones on, heart thudding. My mouth was dry, my fingers trembled, and the audio just kept going. Night after night I recorded her, bragging, manipulating, one call after another. Of course I fake cry, he falls for it every time. I told him I couldn't pay the phone bill, then I bought those boots. Even if he finds out, what's he gonna do? Bill me? Every word felt like a knife. Not because she lied, but because I loved her while she rehearsed her lines. Because I held her when she cried. And she was performing. By the end of the month, I had nearly 8 hours of audio. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted the full picture, and part of me wanted to know just how far she'd go. It was a Sunday afternoon when the biggest lie slipped into the open, by accident. We were at her place, sorting laundry and watching some indie film she claimed was life-changing. She stepped out to take a call, leaving a stack of mail on the counter. Most of it was junk, flyers, credit card promos, a few unopened letters, but one envelope caught my eye, a financial statement from a brokerage firm. I wasn't going to open it, but the flap was already torn. I glimpsed numbers through the window. 6 figures. I pulled it out slowly. It wasn't a bill. It was a portfolio summary under her name. Multiple investments, dividends, cash withdrawals. One line stood out in bold, current account value, $121,438.52. I just stared at it. This woman, who cried about vet bills and split restaurant tabs, had over $100,000 tucked away. She'd let me cover everything while pretending she couldn't scrape together bus fare. And now I had proof. I snapped a photo and slid the statement back. She came in moments later, complaining about how draining the phone call had been. I nodded, numb. She kissed my cheek. "You're my peace," she said. That night I opened a spreadsheet. Line by line, I started documenting every expense I'd covered over the last 2 years. Rent, food, car repairs, subscriptions, gifts, flights, therapy sessions. Even the almond milk she insisted on, it added up fast. $28,014.60. And then I remembered something she said on one of the recordings. "He thinks I'm poor. I just don't spend my money. I keep it safe." She wasn't surviving. She was stockpiling. And I was the one funding her freedom. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared at the total. Then I made a plan. When I finally confronted her, I was calm, too calm. We were sitting in her kitchen, sunlight pouring through the window like it didn't know a storm was coming. I handed her the spreadsheet, printed, bound, and labeled. Her smile faltered as she flipped through it. "What is this?" she asked. "Everything I've paid for in the last 2 years," I said. "Itemized, verified, cross-checked with bank statements." She laughed, nervously at first, then bitterly. "Are you serious? Are you billing me?" "I'm asking for reimbursement," I replied. "Or at least honesty." Then I played a 5-second clip from one of the recordings. "Just one. He thinks I'm poor. I just don't spend my money. I keep it safe." Her face went pale. She stood up so fast the chair screeched. "You recorded me. You're insane. This is abuse." "No," I said quietly. "What you did was abuse. I just documented it." She didn't argue. She left. I thought that would be the end. But 3 days later, I got a letter from a law office. She was accusing me of financial coercion and emotional manipulation. Her lawyer claimed I had exploited her emotional vulnerabilities for control and demanded compensation for mental damages and financial distress. It felt like I was living in reverse. She lied, used me, drained me, and now she was trying to sue me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor of my apartment, the recordings echoing in my headphones, her voice now sounding foreign, like someone I never really knew. That was my rock bottom. Not the money, not the lies, but the realization that love didn't just blind me, it buried me. And if she wanted war, I had evidence. And a printer with fresh ink. I sent her lawyer a reply, professionally worded. No threats, no venom, just facts. Attached was a PDF labeled Statement of Financial Contribution, 2023-2025. It included the full spreadsheet, bank receipts, timestamps, and, most importantly, a curated selection of audio clips. I didn't send the worst ones, just enough to paint the picture. Leah laughing, bragging, strategizing. One clip ended with her saying, "He thinks I'm healing. I'm just hustling." I included a note. "If this matter continues, I will pursue small claims court on grounds of financial deception. This evidence will be presented in full." I hit send. Then I waited. For 3 days, nothing. No call, no text, no rage-fueled emails. Just silence. And then, on the 4th day, her lawyer responded. But this time, not with another threat. The email was curt, but clear. "Our client is withdrawing all claims and has been advised to cease further contact. Please consider this matter closed." I read it 3 times. Then once more, just to be sure, no apology. No admission. But I didn't need one. I knew what those recordings meant. I knew what she'd done, and now so did her lawyer. Whatever mask she wore in that office cracked the moment her own words played back in surround sound. A week later, Leah texted me. "You really had to go that far? I trusted you." I didn't respond, because the truth was, I had trusted her. I gave her everything: time, money, love, grace, and she saw it as leverage. This wasn't revenge. This was the receipt she hoped I'd never write. But I wasn't her fool anymore. I was the man who kept the record. I wasn't expecting a phone call, but I got one. It was her lawyer, not his assistant. Not a formal letter, just a direct call to my personal number. He introduced himself again, politely, then paused. "I reviewed the material you sent," he said. "And after consulting with my firm, I've decided to withdraw representation." I blinked. "You're dropping her case?" There was another pause. Then something I didn't expect. "I don't say this lightly, Mr. Howard, but you handled this situation with restraint and diligence. The evidence you provided clearly outlines a pattern of manipulation. I cannot, in good conscience, pursue a claim against you." I sat there, phone in one hand, the room silent around me. He went on to say he'd advised Leah to avoid any further escalation. He didn't say what she said in response, but his tone made it clear. She wasn't happy. What shook me the most was what he said last. "There's a thin line between emotional dependence and exploitation." She crossed it. "And you documented every step." Click. I sat back on my couch, staring at the wall, feeling something I hadn't in months. Validation. Not from a friend, not from some anonymous forum, but from a man whose job it was to argue on her behalf. And even he couldn't spin what she'd done. Later that day, I learned from a mutual friend that Leah was panicking, saying she was being framed and taken out of context. But context was exactly what I'd preserved, in her own voice, her own words. And the worst part, she wasn't sorry. She was just scared of being exposed. That's when I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. End of Part 10. Say, continue with Part 11 when you're ready. You said, "Yes, ChatGPT said, Part 11, the final receipt, word count 347. She broke the silence with a bank notification. A wire transfer hit my account for $18,000. No note, no email, no apology. Just a lump sum from an account in her name. It wasn't the full amount I'd calculated, but honestly, I didn't care. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the shift. The power she used to hold, quietly, manipulatively, was gone. Now she was paying to make it all disappear. I didn't respond. But apparently, not reacting was worse for her than a scream. That same week, someone leaked a few of her soft life Instagram reels, overlaid with clips from the audio recordings. Her followers turned quick, comment sections flooded with questions. Is this real? She scammed her boyfriend? Girl, not the victim act and a trust fund? She locked her accounts, deleted comments, unfollowed friends, but the damage was already done. Brands she'd been collaborating with, small indie labels, artist collectives, started dropping her. No drama, just silent distance. The same silence she used on me for 2 years. Then came the final play. A rebrand. She changed her bio to mental health advocate, survivor, healer. Started posting long captions about trauma, toxic masculinity, and how she was learning to forgive herself. I wanted to feel angry, but all I felt was empty. You can't rebrand your way out of the truth. Meanwhile, I was free. No more spreadsheet updates. No more guilt when checking my bank app. No more flinching when she walked into the room. I booked a solo trip to Colorado. Packed light. Left the fake peace and heavy love behind, and as the plane lifted off, I smiled to myself. She spent 2 years pretending to be broke, but I was the one she tried to bankrupt in every way. Not anymore. I moved 3 months later. New apartment, new city, new number. Not because I was running, but because I was finally done standing still for people who only move when it benefits them. I'd started dating again, slowly, cautiously. I wasn't bitter, just smarter now. The kind of smart that only comes from watching love rot in real time and realizing that sometimes the most toxic part of a relationship isn't screaming. It's silence. Leah tried reaching out once more. An email. Long, performative. She called herself confused, said she wasn't in a good place, and that she never meant to hurt me. The subject line read, "Closure." I didn't open it. Closure is something you build, not something you beg from the person who cracked you open. Sometimes at night I'd replay the recordings, not to feel pain, but to remember how much I ignored, how often I mistook manipulation for vulnerability. She used to say, "You're my safe space." What she meant was, "You're my resource." It hit me hardest when I was packing for the move. I picked up the digital clock, the one with the hidden mic inside, and just stared at it. It had sat there on our bookshelf for months. Quiet, watching, collecting everything I hadn't been brave enough to say out loud. I placed it in a box and labeled it with a Sharpie. Lessons I paid for. As I loaded the last of my boxes into the truck, I thought love shouldn't require surveillance. Trust shouldn't need proof. And peace shouldn't feel like walking on eggshells. She taught me what emotional theft looks like. And I taught myself how to recover from it, one receipt at a time. That's not revenge. That's closure. That's freedom.